We're here at the ancient city of Dan. A little bit hard to understand for someone like me who has a background in science and archaeology, but look at this. You've got a father, a mother, and a child. The ancients didn't believe that these were actually their gods, but they believed that their pagan deities either sat on or their life force infiltrated these stones so that when they were about to enter the city, they could come here and leave food for them. So they would leave a bit of oil or bread or fruit here for those deities in the hopes that those deities then wouldn't cause trouble in their lives. Good morning. How are you this morning? It's so good to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking care of everything in the
Thank you.
reserve, and
You're
I mean
welcome.
that so much.
You're welcome.
Yom Tov. I need to find my way to the high place at Dan. That must be the cultic center. One of my favorite parts of this walk is just listening. Just listening to all the different sounds, because the sounds here are different than they hear in other places in the Promised Land. I hear the birds, I hear the call of this beautiful little bird called the yellow-vented bulbul. And there, that sound. That's a sound you hear nowhere else like you do here, the sound of rushing water. We're at the foot of Mount Hermon that gets more than 70 inches of annual precipitation, and that water comes down slope and begins to collect in this area. And when it does, we get these amazing whitewater rapids that form one of the three headwaters of the Jordan River. This is the Dan stream. So cool. I feel a kinship with the things that live here. I feel that we share a love and appreciation for who God is in our lives. Totally dependent on Him. He is so anxious to reveal Himself to us. And one of the ways He does that is through the beauty of His creation. We can learn some things about the God who created this world by walking in His creation like we've just done here. But in order to know Him as He really is, we have to hear Him tell us who He is. And in history, He chose to use one people to do that, the descendants of Abram, the nation of Israel. He gave them a land to live in, the Promised Land, and He chose a place where that people could come and worship Him and support this mission of revealing the one true God to the world. And it's only against that backdrop that we can fully understand what an unholy use of the Holy Land this place is, the high place at Dan. It started with King Jeroboam and a political decision that he had made. He created his own national worship system that was different than the one God had given to the chosen people in order to make sure that his political future was guaranteed. He built a sanctuary here and a worship complex that looked almost exactly like the one that was in Jerusalem. Some of his subjects were Canaanites. They were attracted to the worship of Baal, and the symbol associated with the worship of Baal was the calf. He used an old label, a label that at least people who had heard the name of the Lord were familiar with. These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. And as a consequence, this place becomes a perversion of everything God intended for this holy land to do. One day, Jesus left the Sea of Galilee basin and walked 25 miles to the north, to this area, the region of Caesarea Philippi. He came all the way out here to ask one single question. And asking that question here makes all the difference. We are here at Caesarea Philippi. You can see from the architecture that we almost have moved out of the Middle East to Europe, because most of the archaeology I see here is going to be more European and more associated with the polytheism, the many deities of Europe. Every time I get to this place, I feel like I'm entering an otherworldly, surreal-looking place, and that's exactly what the ancients thought as well. The ancients believed that deities had special powers in special places, and this is one of those. Just above us here, there's a platform with niches cut into the side of Mount Hermon. That was where the ancients believed Pan was particularly powerful, so there's a Pan sanctuary there. And maybe the most striking feature of all is this yawning cave that explodes in front of us here. What we need to add to this picture is water filling that cave and pouring out of it. That's the way it looked when Jesus got here. The ancients were so struck by the appearance, they said that's got to be the entrance to somewhere special. They thought it was the entrance to the underworld, the gate to Hades. Jesus came into this region to ask the disciples a very important question. He starts it out like this: who do people say that I am? It's an interesting question, given that this is near the end of his ministry and the disciples have collected lots and lots of impressions. They begin to give them some of the answers that they've heard. Oh, this must be John the Baptist come back to life, or this is Elijah, or this is Jeremiah, or even one of the other prophets. But I think what's interesting about the question is Jesus doesn't ask it in the Sea of Galilee basin. He asks it here. Who do people say that I am here? And wow, the answer would sound very different up here than it would where people knew a bit about their Old Testament. Up here, they would assume, I suppose, that Jesus was simply a Jewish rabbi, manifesting some very unique powers, but just a Jewish teacher. And then Jesus pauses, and he turns to the disciples and he says, but you, what about you? Who do you say that I am? Peter barely gives it a beat. I got it. I know, Rabbi, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Now listen carefully to that. The rock that's in view is full of paganism. People had built their hopes and their lives and their expectations on this rock. But what does Jesus say? Peter, on this rock, on what you've just said, on what you have just said, I will build my church, and nothing on this mountain can get in the way of that. Not Pan, not the emperor of Rome, and in fact, remember the cave? The gates of Hades will never prevail against it. Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi because it's a region that simply had not come to understand who the one true God was. He comes to this place and says, I want to get one thing straight here. I want to make sure that you and everyone else in this region who hasn't had the opportunity knows who I really am. And Peter, you got it exactly right when you said, you are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God.